The big question is this: how do we take a seemingly ordinary world and make it beyond extraordinary? In yoga, there is so much more than meets the eye, and it's not just the things we do on our yoga mats that make the biggest difference. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name is Austin Bitsis, and welcome to Life as a Secret Yogi. Welcome to the Life as a Secret Yogi podcast featuring our guest today, Luca Hadassah, and myself, your host, Austin Bitsis. But before we jump in, I'd like you to repeat this mantra with me. I am willing to take risk, and not everything has to be perfect. I am willing to take risk, and not everything has to be perfect. What do you want in life that you haven't yet achieved because you are paralyzed by deep conscious or even unconscious fear? For me, that fear was the fear of failing to be perfect. As Liz Corwin, one of our previous guests, said, perfection is completely imperfect because it's impossible. So I sat down one night and wrote all my goals in life, what actions I needed to take to achieve them. The next step I did was I wrote down all the self-limiting beliefs and fears I have that were stopping me from taking action that would result in me achieving my desired goals. From these core self-limiting beliefs or fears or whatever you like to call them, I created mantras to no longer self-identify with my self-limiting beliefs. Train my mind both morning, night, and whatever I need throughout the day. I highly recommend you try this exercise at home, and if you're all interested in further details of this exercise, let me know in our Facebook group, Secret Yogi Society, which there will be a link in the show notes below. This mantra helped me take months of planning the Secret Yogi Society and this show to creating something that was actually tangible and positively impacting people's lives. So, what does this have to do with yoga, right? It has everything to do with yoga. Regular self-reflection in order to overcome self-limiting beliefs and take false identifications that are holding us back are a big part of any complete yoga practice. Everything we need is within us. Gaining mastery of the mind to gain union of mind and body to take positive actions is so important and the core of yoga. Our guest, Luca Hadassah, utilizes self-reflection to take action and catalyzed her life to take an amazing journey that would change the trajectory of her life. However, if it wasn't for self-awareness through self-reflection, this would not even have been possible. Luca is someone who is truly genuine in her words, and her story to overcoming her own obstacles is something of a storybook. And it really truly is. There's pirates, there's love, there's romance, there's finding purpose, and I'm totally serious and you won't want to miss this episode. So she also takes us through topics of Ayurveda, having a creative practice, and retreats. And Luca took us also at the end through a really cool meditation rooted in deep tradition, which you could find in the next episode. So before we jump in, a word from our sponsor. It's actually a section I like to call I Wish We Were Sponsored By. It is one of our favorite portions of the show because it is not only fun to record, but it also have a quick way to add value to you listening. Hey, if you like this section or have any way to make it better, let me know in the comments below. Giving it a book reco, got a lot of positive feedback, so today I wish I was sponsored by Sandra Elixir's book, The Art of Fermentation. And this is a magnificent book. So fermentation, for everyone who doesn't know, is utilizing the magical and this invisible world of bacteria all around us to make our food alive and great for our gut. When we think of fermented foods, we think of sauerkraut, pickles, yogurt, or at least that's the foods I think of. Yet there are so many other fermented foods such as bread, wine, beer, fruit, cheese, and even fish. This book is literally the Bible of fermentation, covering everything from the history to the health benefits to creating your own fermented foods, which is easier than you think. Just think that $10 8-ounce jar of fermented beets or sauerkraut that you get from Whole Foods can easily be made at home for a fraction of the price. I was super pumped when I got this book for Christmas and wanted to share it with you all. Again, it's called The Art of Fermentation by Sandra Elixir. It's this big orange book, you can't miss it, which you can find on Amazon. And as always, you don't have to, but of course, if you were to use the affiliate link in the show notes below, it would be greatly appreciated as all the proceeds go directly back into supporting the show. Thank you so much for all who have supported this show, and I'll make sure to pay it back tenfold. So without further ado, enjoy this episode. Luca Hadassah is an advanced yoga and meditation teacher, as well as an amazing Ayurvedic therapist. Over the years, she has immersed herself deeply spiritually through her advanced study of science of yoga and Ayurveda. She is an amazing figure in the yoga community with a mystical presence. Don't believe me? Just check out her on Instagram at Rising on Earth. Luca, I'm sure you're aware of this mystical presence, and I know it's not all smoke and mirrors. Extensive training in yoga and Ayurveda, and your real specialty is yoga nidra, I believe. So in 2017, you decided to make this big decision in your life to find a deeper connection, and you left for India. What was going through your life at this time, and how did you really feel, or how were you drawn to seek this deeper connection?
Wow. Well, thank you, first of all, for that introduction. That was so beautiful. And thank you for having me on your show. So I'll tell you the beginning of my story, how I came into yoga and Ayurveda. It was a moment of my life. I was living in London and I was working in the fashion industry. And I was going through a very, very, very hard time in my life. For a few years, I felt extremely lost within myself. I was about 24 when it all hit the rocks. And when I turned 25, I decided at that moment that something had to change. I had a huge breakdown, and I basically turned to my mother, who is a yogi, and she was a yogi at the time. And I started to develop my deeper passion and interest for yoga. I was already doing yoga as a side, I wasn't so far into it. And, all of a sudden, this moment happened where all of my truth just came out of me. I don't know how, I don't know why. I can't tell you what was the ultimate moment. But one day, I remember it clear as day, I just broke down into a million pieces. And within 6 months, I made this plan. I'm going to India. I want to go and find more about yoga. I want to leave this city. I want to go and discover this crazy, incredible science that my mom has basically been doing. And she was telling me all about it and teaching me. And I wanted to get away, really. I was feeling extremely scared, as you can imagine. I left behind my job, my business. I said goodbye to all my friends. I broke up with my boyfriend at the time. I actually put all my belongings on the street and I just put a sign saying, "Take what you want." I took with me one small bag. I'm not even kidding. And I went. I got on a plane and no return ticket. And I said, I'm going to discover. Had a 6-month visa. And I was a broken girl. I was really broken. I cut my hair really short. I have long hair at the moment. I just I went from a girl who wore makeup every day and dressed up to go to work and work in fashion shows, who went partying, took a lot of drugs, everything, to just suddenly zero. So it was just a death, I would say, a death of identity and a huge identity crisis. But yeah, then I basically went to India and I went to this Ayurvedic school. And luckily there was some beautiful people there who were from all over the world. I made really good friends with a girl from California. She was awesome. Very spiritual girl, beautiful. And we became good friends. And I realized at that moment that I could start a new life and I could make friends with new people. And I don't have to hold on to my identity of who I've been before this moment. And then I started to study Ayurveda and started to learn all about how to heal myself with yoga. I did a yoga therapy course at the same time as doing an Ayurvedic course. And then we did our own self-healing. So yeah, that was the beginning. And I started to heal myself in this moment.
Yes, and you really found this healing without any type of like this holistic healing of your body, without any medication, without any kind of traditional Western ways. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So as I said, My mum, she was already a yogi at the time. She still is. And she is a vegan and vegetarian nutritionist. She's always been helping my family to be healthy, and we never really listened to her. I've got one sister and my father. We're a very close family. But she was always giving us healthy food and healthy diets. And as I said, with yoga, she was showing me a bit of yoga. And my father, he dealing with depression as well and had to take medication. So we all thought that I was going to have to take medication too, because I was also suffering with depression. But I really spoke to my mum about this, and she said, you know, you can heal yourself holistically. So I was very lucky that my mum believed in that. And yeah, I just said to myself, I'm not going to allow this to consume me, and I'm going to deal with all of the issues that I was going through in a holistic way. And the doctors in India, they showed me the path. They showed me how I could do it. But it wasn't easy. It was a very long path. But yeah, I basically said to myself, I'm going to learn as much as I can. And I was so determined. And I said, I'm going to just throw myself into this. And yeah, it has really been a miracle, I would say, to discover that it really works.
Yeah, and you really immersed yourself in, like you said, you did a 6-month diploma in Ayurveda and yoga therapy. And then also after this point, you continued to travel India to complete your 200-hour training in Hatha and Ashtanga. Is that right?
Yeah, well, basically, I had a 6-month visa. So
Mhm.
I did the Ayurvedic course, and I did the diploma, and I did the yoga therapy. It was 3 months in the school and then 3 months outside the school. And when we were outside the school, we were just doing distant learning. So I was traveling around India. I went to the Himalayas and I lived there, and I did my distant learning there. I went to live in an ashram. Went to do my first Vipassana, actually. I discovered deep meditation there. And then I actually went to Bali because I had to swap my visa. And in Bali, I fell in love and I decided to follow a romance. I found some beautiful people in this artist community, and they were actually pirates, modern day pirates from Argentina. This story sounds crazy, but it's true. And they were
Yeah, it's
sailing around the world. So I decided to sail with them and live with them, and I fell in love. And I decided to just, let myself free. I'd had this 6 month inner work. I'd also had just before that, I also had a ayahuasca ceremony, my first ever one in the Himalayas.
and how was
And then
that? That
that
that your first experience with
with ayahuasca,
ayahuasca?
it was in the
Yeah.
Himalayas. It was, oh wow, it was basically at the very top of a mountain in Himachal Pradesh. We hiked to this mountain. We lived in this house in the middle of nowhere. There was about 7 of us, and every night we would go up to this little Shiva temple and camp out under the moon and the stars. And yeah, it was 4 days. So we drank the medicine for 3 days in a
Mhm.
row. And then we had a little cacao ceremony at the end. So it was very intense. Most people just do one day at the beginning. I had no idea. But I
Just
did all this
followed
inner
along.
work.
Yeah. No,
So
and
yeah.
it's and then at this point, did you find your deeper connection that you were looking for, like your dharma, or were you still seeking it? Right? It was kind of, it wasn't like a switch you flipped where you went to India and you found it. It was kind of a process.
Oh yeah, it was a huge process. I mean, when I went to the ayahuasca, it was 6 months after it was right at the end of my 6 month visa that I had. And I was still searching. I mean, I'd done the Ayurvedic training and I'd healed myself. And it was only after, I would say, 5 months, I started to see a change actually happen, a very small change. And on that 6th month, I had this ayahuasca ceremony. I was living in this ashram. And that's when things really changed. And I would say that ayahuasca was a very big turning point for me, because it allowed me to take a form of medicine that I used to coin as drugs, and as I had this issue with drugs and partying, and I had this depression, I was actually terrified to take the ayahuasca because I thought that it would do something bad for me. But it showed me that, I don't have to be afraid anymore, that I'm a changed person. And then when I went to Bali after that, it was still a process. And it wasn't until actually 11 months later that I said, right, I'm going to do my teacher training now. I'm ready. So yeah, it was like 11 months to really heal everything and discover that I wanted to actually do something meaningful and go and become a teacher in this in yoga.
Mm-hmm.
It was healing for a long time.
And for many listeners, if they're thinking about saying they need to change, they need to find their deeper connection, their purpose in life, and they're considering possibly leaving for India, or maybe possibly India's or leaving what they have behind is not an option. Out of all your training, what would you say was your biggest takeaway? And how would you recommend we all seek and find our dharma if, say, your experience wasn't something that was accessible to somebody? And yeah, so really, like, how would you recommend somebody who's seeking purpose? Because your story sounds so mystical and it's so enlightening and beautiful. And I think that's something that people may need. But I know you're very unique in that aspect that not everybody is willing to go that extra mile to find it. So, like, what recommendations would you have?
Yeah, this is a really good thing to ask, actually, because I would never say to anyone, if you want to find inner strength, inner peace, you have to go to India to find it, and you don't have to travel anywhere. And that was just my story and the way that I did it. And I think we all have to realize that we are all unique and we all have our own path, and it will unfold for you in the way it's supposed to. And if you really want to search for truth and you want to find the answers to what you're looking for, then it's an internal job. You know, I'll tell you the truth. Actually, all of the traveling I've done and all of this nomadic life, it's actually been exhausting at times. And it wasn't until I realized very recently, actually, that it's all an internal work and it's all about being within as well as being in this world, that it really starts to all click into place. So it doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter how many temples you visit. It doesn't matter how many books you even read. It doesn't matter who you meet. It just matters how honest you can be with your own path and how honest you can be with what's happening in your life and how it needs to unfold. So if you want to escape from something in your life, there will always be a solution to it. Doesn't mean you have to just run away. How I did. And in fact, I wouldn't even be an advocate for running away. What I did was very crazy. And I just said, right, I'm leaving, I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, yeah, that the person that did that, she didn't know any better. And I would
I don't think
say,
there's anything wrong with that either. To say where it's like there's no right answer.
yeah, exactly. So the things that you do in your life, the way that you go and the direction you take is always going to be what's right for you at that moment. That what I mean is that, yeah, you know what's best for you in the moment. So yeah, I would say go within yourself and ask yourself the questions you want to find, and seek some teachers that live in your community or people you can find online, and make space for new things to come into your life, potentially by letting go of things that you know are not going to be healthy for you, such as addictions or jobs that are not serving your purpose or people in your life that are not giving you the respect that you deserve. And make space. And when you make space in your life, anything can come to you. You know, that's how I really see I see that in life, that when you make space for things, new things can come to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would really say. Make space in your life, and
Make
then
space in your life.
whatever you need will come.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that you've been through that experience, what would you say your dharma or your purpose, that deeper connection within, is?
To put it simply, my purpose now is just to be alive and to be present with what is and accept what is, and share what I can from my heart as much as I can. I really feel that my dharma is to pass on the knowledge that I've been so blessed to receive, because I know that not everybody gets the experience to go and learn all these things. And yes, just be happy and love. and enjoy the world.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's beautifully said, and it's just simplicity is like we spoke about previously is sometimes overlooked. And I think now, like we're filming this right now in quarantine time, and just finding one, realizing that everything we need is within, and then two, just simplicity, just being is something that is really overlooked.
Yeah, it's very much overlooked. Simplicity is key to everything,
Yeah.
for sure.
And simplicity, the act of simplicity is the art, or the art of consistency is the act of simplicity. So
I like that. That's nice.
that's something that that's a quote that's very meaningful to me as someone who constantly overcomplicates things. It's just like simplify. So yeah, and
Right.
your mom is a big aspect, as you mentioned, in your life, and yourself and your mom, Mila, is that right?
Mila, yeah,
Mila
Mila.
came out of. Did she join you in this journey?
No,
Or
I
was
went.
she around at any point in contact with you during this journey?
Oh yeah, she's been by my side on the phone, like my little angel. I would call her a guru mother. She's my guru.
Hmm.
If you need to have a guru.
So, did you guys combine forces now to create Samayantra?
So
Yeah.
I took this trip on my own, and I've been living around nomadically by myself. But I stay kind of really connected with my mom, and yeah, we've decided to create this collaboration together to work together because we learn from each other. Whenever we meet up or we speak on the phone, we always share what we've just learned or what we're practicing. We practice when we're together all the time. And so we decided that we wanted to bring our experience together because she's a senior teacher, but I'm still very young and I'm socializing a lot more. So it's nice to bring two sides of the generations together. We thought it could be nice. But Samayantra, the retreats we're doing, it's actually also a family thing. So it's with my sister and my dad as well. We decided to do it as a family. So
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
yeah, my dad's like the logistical manager, and my sister's going to be the chef in the retreats. So we
Hmm.
decided to all join together as a family and make them happen.
Oh, that's awesome. And what exactly does Samayantra mean? I know
Okay.
Sama is tranquility, inner peace, and Yantra is the ancient meditative symbol. Can you tell us more about the meaning and the purpose behind the name, and more into the actual retreat, into just having people slow down and open their hearts?
Sure. So the name, actually, it's quite a funny story. A story how I found the name. So I asked my mum to think of a name. I was like, "You think of a name. You can do whatever you want. I'm so cool with whatever." And she said Sama Yoga. She just chose that word. She reads a lot of scriptures, and she really likes this word because it has many meanings. But yes, as you said, it means inner peace and calm. It's the word that symbolizes when you meet your mind with your heart, and that's really what we're trying to do with yoga. We're trying to join our mind and our heart together so that we can not just think logically, but not just be too much in our emotions. We can bring them together so that we can have the wisdom and compassion combined. So that's Sama. But then we saw that Sama Yoga was already a place, already a company. So I was like, okay, I need to think of another word to go with it. And at the time, I was actually in India earlier this year in January, and I was visiting Ramana Maharishi's ashram. He's an ancient sage who self-realized at the age of 16. He's a very inspirational person, and he inspired me a lot on my journey, and also my mum. And I was writing in my journal in the morning of all these brainstorming, all these words, what could I do, da 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 da, da, and nothing came up. So I said, right, I'm going to go to the ashram and just go and meditate. And I go inside the ashram shop on my way out because I thought, oh, I'll have a look in the shop. And I have a background on my phone I don't have it with me. I have a background on my phone of the yantra. The yantra, it's the Sri Chakra yantra, which is the symbol of, here it is. The
Yeah,
symbol.
and if for everybody listening, you could visit samayantra.com and see
Mhm.
that.
See that you can see it on the logo. It's the picture of the divine cosmos. So I went into the Ramana shop, and in the corner of the shop was a massive poster of the Sri Chakra yantra, which was exactly the same print as the one on the back on my phone, on my screensaver. So I thought, okay, here's the sign. I need in my name. And then I basically chose that it was going to symbolize, we're going to use this symbol, of the Sri Chakra yantra. You can see it on our logo. And it's basically a picture that symbolizes the divine masculine and feminine meeting together, making creation.
And you and your mom, with all this experience within like higher education of learning yoga and other tools such as Ayurveda and Reiki, integrating all these different tools must make this retreats and your classes pretty special. How do you treat each individual differently with integrating these tools and making this really special for somebody that's going to a retreat?
Well, for us, we feel that it's really important that we bring together the whole spectrum of spirituality, because we feel that it's really important to understand it from different points of view. And that, as you just said, everyone's unique and has a different story. And therefore, not every type of spiritual path is going to resonate with everyone. So I think if we give a retreat where we give a little bit of Ayurveda, a little bit of yoga, a little bit of, tarot, and we speak about philosophy, we potentially go into lucid dreaming and talk about astral traveling a little bit if people are interested. Just go through the different avenues that you can go in, and then people will just pick up with what resonates for them. And in a retreat setting or in a class, when you have people interested in one certain path, then you go further into that. So we want to sort of show that there's no right or wrong way to come into your spiritual self, and that there are so many different methods and so many different ways you can experience it. And especially very important to know that yoga is nothing without Ayurveda, and it's nothing without its philosophy. You have to practice everything together to really understand how to understand yourself. Mm-hmm. So that's really what we're trying to aim for with our work.
And in my opinion, retreats, if someone's looking to really find themselves, is a great way to immerse yourself within in a short span of time. And say somebody doesn't want to do that higher education or doesn't want to kind of immerse yourself, like back to your story, a retreat is something regularly done could be very beneficial to kind of bring yourself back and find who you truly are and find that deeper connection. What recommendations would you have for people that are looking for retreats, like looking to attend a retreat? Is there anything that's really special? I'm sure you've been around a lot of retreats. I'm sure you've been to retreats. So I'm sure you're the person to ask for that.
Yeah, definitely. I go on a lot of different retreats, and I've definitely experienced in a lot of different countries. So that's a great question. First of all, I would recommend to do your own retreats by yourself, like one day in the month. If you can't afford to go for a retreat, just say, for this one day or this 1 week, I'm going to give myself a retreat where I'm going to journal, and I'm going to sit in meditation, and I'm going to follow an online yoga class or go to a yoga class. Give yourself a diet plan and just give yourself that space once a month. It doesn't have to be a week. It can just be one day.
Yeah, no, I think that's an amazing recommendation, because one, it's not always accessible for people due to time, but also financially. Like retreats are accessible for everybody, and just knowing that the benefits of a retreat can be still achieved through other means. And it's just really just settling down and just kind of embodying that. Like you said, it's almost like a spa day.
Yes, like a self-care spa day.
Yeah, like self-care. It's self-care. And then I really want to take some time to dive into Ayurveda and nutrition. And this is one of those like fascinating topics that for me, I could just spend hours talking about. So for the audience who may be unfamiliar with Ayurveda, what is it and how can we utilize it to guide our nutrition and lifestyle choices? Because I know it goes way further than what we eat. And as you said, it's a huge part of yoga.
Yeah, so Ayurveda is basically known as the sister science of yoga, because Ayurveda, I always say, is about learning about the earth and the cycles of nature, and learning how to sync those with your natural body. So Ayurveda is the science of understanding how your body works. Your body is always going to be part of nature, right? Because we are part of nature. We live here on this planet. So if you can learn about how your body works, then you'll understand your body better. And then you can give your organs the right nourishment, and you will be able to prevent yourself from diseases. So Ayurveda has all these different routines that we do. We follow certain ways of living, certain ways of taking care of ourselves. And then we have different diets. And then the yoga, I always say, is the science of the mind. So yoga is actually just about your mind. It's all about your mind. It's about how to understand your thoughts, understand your mind. And when you can do both of those together, then you've got magic, because then you can link your body and your mind together, right? Which is what we're looking for. We're looking for this integration. And it doesn't mean that you have to do all the things in yoga and Ayurveda, all of them. You just take what resonates, as I said before, take what resonates and keep those things. So in Ayurveda, what we do is we look at the elements, because that's what everything's made from. We break everything down into elements. So we look at the elements of the world that we live in, and we have air and space. We have the fire element. We have the water and the earth. So space and air are the lightest, fire is in the middle, and then water and earth are the heaviest. And then we basically look at all the things in creation. We look at plants, we look at animals, we look at humans, we look at everything. And we say, okay, which elements are there? And then we can understand what they are made of and how we can use those elements. So every food has different elements, for example. And then what you do is you look at yourself, your own body, and you distinguish which elements that you have more of. So all of us have all 5 elements, but some of us have more than one element a lot stronger than the other. So usually if you have space and air stronger, you'll be more vata. So you'll be more fast, you'll be more quick, you'll be lighter, you'll be skinnier, you'll be more dry within your hair and your skin, very fast thinking, very, very fast paced. If you have more fire element, this is called pitta. So you will be more stronger in your muscles, very, very athletic probably, very into fitness. You'll be very intelligent, sharp thinking, very fast thinking, also very much a leader in society. And if you have the water and the earth element the strongest, you'll be more of what we call kapha. So this means that you'll be a lot more calmer, a lot slower. You'll be that kind of person people come to when they need advice. You're very good at cuddling and very nurturing, very motherly-like. So we basically look at those different body types, vata, pitta, kapha, and then we can say what your constitution is. So you're born as one constitution, but then you grow up and then your constitution changes. So what we do is we look at how it's changed and see why it's changed, and if it's a good change or a bad change. And then we link it to different issues within your body or your mind you might have. And that's how we go into it, through these elements. And then we take the food and the environment, and we see which elements are in the food and the environment. And then we compare that with your body. So it's this alchemy of basically working with the elements in nature and the elements in yourself, and trying to find that harmony where they can balance. So when the seasons change, the elements change. And when that happens, we want to harmonize ourselves so that we work with these elements well, we don't fight against them.
Mm-hmm.
And then we want to eat food that harmonizes the elements as well. So it's a beautiful science. It's very in-depth. I won't go so much into it. It's very, very deep. But that's the basis of it, really.
That was a amazing explanation of it. And for all the listeners, there's a lot of constitution tests where you could find your constitution, your dosha online. If you just Google Ayurvedic constitution tests, there's always a bunch that come up. I know there's a lot of books that I have personally that I've used, and they have their own tests and more information on each dosha. Is there any resources that you recommend you particularly used when you were learning, or still
definitely.
use?
I would highly, highly recommend that you check out David Frawley. He's got a website called VedaNet. He runs the Vedic Institute, and he has so many amazing articles with him and his team that he writes on Ayurveda. But he doesn't just write about Ayurveda. He's got Tantra, he's got astrology, he's got yoga, he's got Vedic life. And I study with him. I do his online courses, and I have all his books. He's incredible. I
Awesome.
would so recommend him.
And what was his name again?
Dr. David Frawley, and his
Dr.
website
David
is
Frawley.
VedaNet, VEDAnet.com.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we'll include it in the show notes for everybody listening right now. And then based on your Ayurveda based on Ayurveda and other tools you've learned, what are some non-negotiables in your life to living a long and healthy life and people today can implement into their lives? So non-negotiables such as like diet, is it your sleep, is it your asana practice or your meditation practice?
Well, definitely, I would say is being honest with myself. That's number one, non-negotiable. You've got to tell the truth. I wake up every day and I make a prayer, and I do that every morning. I make a prayer, kind of like a mantra, an intention. It doesn't have to be with your hands together. And I always tell myself in the morning, remember to tell the truth. And yeah, I would say practicing some type of meditative practice every day is a non negotiable. I don't practice asana every single day. Some days I do a long meditation. Some days I do some creative work. I'm really into crafting. I do some sewing or some crochet or some embroidery. Some days I just write poetry. I do some tarot cards. So anything that really connects me with myself. But I do have, I would say that you have to have some kind of practice that you do regularly. So I do my regular asana. I'm an Ashtanga yogi. I do that at least 4 days a week. Another non-negotiable is eating food that is nourishing to my body. And I have this rule in my life that I share with everyone, which is 80-20. So 80% of the time, eat food that purifies your body, drink really healthily with nice water and herbal tea. Don't drink alcohol, don't smoke, and take care of yourself. But 20% of the time, you get this free card where you can do whatever you want. So I say 20% of the time, just be human, enjoy the pleasures of life without attachment. That's a really important part of my life, 80-20. And I would also say what's non-negotiable is going to sleep without going on any form of internet. I like to always have a little prayer meditation before sleeping. Yeah, that's about it really, I think.
Yeah. No, that's great. I could resonate with a lot of that, especially that 80-20 rule. For me, I consider that everyone has a cup. So it's like I call it my cup metaphor when I explain it to people. It's basically that we have different stressors in our life, and that might be a stress from not sleeping enough, might be a stress from work or relationship. And each one of those stresses basically fills up your cup a little bit more and a little bit more. But each one of those stresses are not equal per person. So if somebody's like allergic to dairy or gluten or really stressed in work, that's going to fill up their cup more than somebody else. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you add those stressors on top of each other, eventually your cup overflows. And when your cup overflows, that either results in a sickness or maybe an injury or some other type of outwardly form. So I always use that metaphor, and it's kind of relates back to your 80-20. And so
Yeah,
that's why it really resonated with me. It's just make sure that your cup is as empty as possible at all times so that you don't experience that. And you realize that stress builds on each other. And I think that's
exactly.
a big problem with um, also a lot of these workouts around like hit workouts are great and the science is there to back it, but people don't realize how much other stress is going through their life. And then when you add on top of that stress, like extra stress from the workout, it's like it could result in injury, or maybe it raises your cortisol levels, which now you can't sleep. You're having trouble sleep, you're eating more, and it just has this compounding effect. So
I
that
can
really,
totally resonate with that. Yeah, for sure. That's a really, really nice analogy, actually, because actually, what you just said about the workouts, I am a very pitta dosha, which means I'm very fiery and active. And I
mhm.
used to do so much workout. I used to run. I used to go to the gym. I used to just be like, more, more, more. And then when I discovered yoga, I was like, more asana, more asana. until one day I cracked and I was like, why isn't this working out? And I realized, yeah, my cup's overflowing, and meditation came into my life and everything changed.
Yeah.
So
And
you're right.
yeah, I could again resonate with that. I'm a pitta, a little bit of veda, but I'm always at go, 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 more, more, more. And I'm still at this point sometimes when I take that asana too far. And now it's like something that's supposed to be good for me
Mm,
is it might result in recently my finger has been swollen from doing too many handstands. So it's like you could take anything that's good for you too far. And you
exactly.
really have to respond back to your body. And also it's don't be too hard on yourself, because I realized from where I was, like you said, where it's like go, 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 run, run, run. I used to run over 80 miles a week as a competitive distance runner, and
Wow.
plus on top of all the other stuff I was doing active, and I was just beating myself up, and yoga was kind of like thing that I found. So it's like as long as we're still going in the right direction. And
Yeah.
there's something else you said about creative work, and I would love to dive more into that, how that is part of your practice. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that I've been trying to integrate into it, just simply writing. I know you've been working on some embroidery
Yes.
on your Instagram. So can you just tell more, the listener and myself more about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, for me, creativity is spirituality in expression. You have Shiva, which is consciousness itself, the I am consciousness, the place where all creation came from. And then you have Shakti, which is the feminine. Shakti is what allows the consciousness to form itself into something. So Earth is Shakti because this is the form we're living in. And we have these energies within us. So we need to learn how to play with them. And for me, the Shakti energy is all about creativity. It's all about expressing yourself in any way that it comes to you. So I would say cooking is one really great way that I express that. But yeah, getting into art through crafting, using your hands, it's so meditative. My mum is such a professional knitter. You have no idea. She can make the most incredible things, and it's just a meditation. So I started to try it. That's what she said. It's just a meditation. So I started to try it, and wow, you have to calculate all of the stitches. When you're sewing, you have to calculate all of the ways that you're going to put the pattern together. When you're doing all of this, making different patterns to wear with different items of clothing, you have to understand exactly where everything has to go, and it's like maths and meditation mixed together. It's really good for your brain, and yeah, and then you get to use your creativity. You get to explore things and learn new things, and get really into it. But I would say that if you don't really want to try making clothes, you can also just do some maybe woodcraft. I've got a good friend who does bushcraft, and he teaches people how to make bows and arrows and teaches you how to carve things. That's also really fun. Foraging, going outside and finding wild foods is really creative and really fun. And yes, writing, my number one out of all of them. I think that actually would be a non-negotiable, writing every day.
Yep, I know poetry from your Instagram is a big part of your life, and you have some beautiful poetry there.
Thank you. Yes, I absolutely love to write poetry. And I'll tell you that it didn't come out of me. All of this creativity did not come out of me until I started yoga. Before, I used to work in fashion and I used to have my life in the fashion industry, but I was a really emotionally blocked person. And as I said previously, I was suffering with depression and different addictions. And I didn't have that sense of creativity. It wasn't until I really found my confidence and my inner happiness with yoga and through all of the practices, suddenly this huge burst of creativity came out, and I started writing poetry every day and buying beautiful journals. And I thought, where is this coming from? But I would say that if you love to write, anyone listening, and you love to do poetry, don't be afraid to just share it with the world, because people absolutely love to read other people's perspectives on the world. And also, if you have any creative work you want to share, it's beautiful to share it. And when you share it as well, people are going to resonate and they're going to write to you. And who knows where it will take you in your life. it's beautiful to share as a form of spirituality.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, you were actually mentioning that poets and scientists are some of the greatest yogis, and they might not even know it. And that kind of goes around the whole message of the secret yogi. So the secret yogi and kind of building that community around utilizing, not, you don't have to become the yogi, but you could utilize the tools of yoga to make an ordinary life extraordinary. So all the information and more on Luca Hadassah on her Instagram at Rising on Earth. And there's a period before the on and after the on. So I'll put that in the show notes. And if you're interested in doing a retreat guided by Luca and her family, you can visit samayantra.com to find out more information on the upcoming retreats. All this and more, like I said, will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining this episode. I hope you loved this conversation. If you're the type of person who has taken action to make life beautiful through the tools of yoga, I'd really appreciate if you headed over to iTunes and left us a raving review to keep this show going. Every review is read by myself, the host, and your feedback will most definitely be taken into account for future episodes. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Have an extraordinary rest of your day, and remember, our actions and thoughts are contagious, so make them good ones.